I'm Adrienne Fox, 32, an interior designer who built a life I'm proud of. But nothing prepared me for that family dinner in Knoxville just weeks ago after my father's heart surgery. I sat across from my parents hoping for a moment of connection after years of distance. Instead, my mother's voice cut through the silence sharp and unyielding. "We never wanted you." My father nodded, his eyes cold, echoing her words without hesitation. My sister sat there silent, her gaze fixed on her plate. My heart pounded the air heavy with their rejection. I could have screamed, could have cried, but I stayed quiet, my mind racing. They don't remember how much I've done for them all this time. But 3 weeks later, their calls wouldn't stop desperate pleading. I picked up once and said, "You never wanted me. How did I get here? How did their cruelty fuel my strength? Stick with me to find out." Has someone you loved ever made you feel unwanted? Share your story in the comments. It might help someone else feel less alone. Hit like if this hits close to home and subscribe to see how I took back my power from those who hurt me most. Growing up in Knoxville, I quickly learned that family love wasn't meant for me. In our middle-class home in Tennessee, I was the unseen child always eclipsed. My mother, Virginia Dixon, an event planner consumed by her social image, treated me like an afterthought. She'd spend hours crafting perfect charity galas, her charm reserved for guests, never for me. I'd show her my sketches, vibrant drawings of warm, welcoming homes, and she'd barely look, muttering, "Focus on something useful," before returning to her calls. Her dismissal cut deep, but I clung to hope she'd notice me someday. My father, Robert Dixon, a retired lawyer, was equally distant. He'd sit in his study, flipping through case files, his world closed off. I'd try to spark a conversation asking about his old cases, but he'd respond with a curt "busy" or a nod, his eyes never meeting mine. He deferred to Virginia's every whim, never challenging her coldness toward me. I was a puzzle piece that didn't fit, left on the edge of their lives. My sister, Kayla Dixon, 3 years my senior, was their golden child. Her academic trophies adorned our shelves, each one a silent taunt. She'd stride through the house, her confidence radiating, while Virginia and Robert lavished her with praise. "You'll do great things," they'd say, their faces alight with pride I never knew. My good grades earned a fleeting glance, quickly forgotten, as they celebrated Kayla's latest debate win. I was the spare, the one they didn't need. Drawing was my sanctuary. In my corner of the house, I'd sketch cozy living rooms and sunlit kitchens, places where families shared laughter. Those images were my safe haven, a world where I mattered. Once Virginia found a detailed floor plan, I'd drawn a dream house brimming with warmth and tossed it aside, saying, "Don't waste your time." I hid my sketches after that, protecting them from her indifference. Courtney Walsh, my best friend since kindergarten, was my anchor. Her home was loud, filled with siblings and chaos, but it felt alive. We'd sit on her porch, munching on her mom's homemade brownies, talking about school and dreams. Courtney saw my sketches and gasped, "Adrienne, you'll design real homes like this one day." Her encouragement was a lifeline, a flicker of warmth in my cold world. I fought for my parents' attention. At 8, I joined the school choir, hoping they'd attend my concert. Virginia had a client meeting. Robert said he was too tired. I stood on stage, scanning an empty crowd, my heart sinking. At 10, I tried basketball, thinking they'd cheer me on. Kayla's spelling bee was the same day, and they chose her without hesitation. Each rejection carved a deeper wound, but I kept trying, desperate to be seen. School became my refuge. I poured myself into studies, not just for grades, but to prove my worth. My art teacher, Mrs. Larson, noticed my talent. A warm woman with a gentle smile, she'd pin my drawings on the classroom board, saying, "Adrienne, you have a real gift." Her words were small doses of validation, but they couldn't erase the emptiness at home. I'd return to Virginia's distracted sighs, or Robert's silence, clutching Mrs. Larson's praise like a shield. By 12, I saw my place clearly. Kayla's achievements sparked family dinners and gifts. My efforts earned shrugs. Once I overheard Virginia boasting to a neighbor about her brilliant daughter, her voice glowing with pride. She meant Kayla, not me. I stood in the shadows, my throat tight, realizing I'd never measure up. Still, I didn't surrender. I kept sketching, kept studying, kept hoping. But a quiet strength was growing inside me, a resolve to carve out a life where I didn't need their approval. Stepping into my teens, I craved love, but burned with a drive to stand on my own. At 15, I was no longer the quiet child hoping for scraps of affection. I wanted answers, and that meant facing my sister head-on. One evening, Kayla Dixon strutted into our living room, her law school acceptance letter in hand, gloating about the lavish party my parents were planning for her. "They're so proud of me," she taunted, her smirk cutting deeper than her words. I snapped, demanding why they treated me like I didn't exist. Her reply was a blade. "They've always said you're a burden, Adrienne. They never wanted another kid." The truth landed like a punch, my chest tightening as her words echoed in my mind. I stood frozen, her laughter ringing in my ears, knowing she spoke their truth. I confronted my mother, Virginia Dixon, the next day, asking if it was true. She didn't deny it. "We had plans." "Adrienne," she said, her voice clipped, eyes fixed on her event planner notes. "You were unexpected." My father, Robert Dixon, sat nearby, silent, his nod confirming her words. Their admission shattered something in me, but it also lit a fire. If they wouldn't see my worth, I'd prove it myself. School became my battleground. I poured my energy into design competitions, sketching innovative room layouts and bold color schemes. My first entry, a minimalist library design, won second place at a regional contest. I rushed home, clutching the certificate, hoping for a flicker of pride. My mother glanced at it, said, "That's nice," and turned back to her phone. My father didn't even look up from his newspaper. Their indifference stung, but I refused to let it stop me. I entered another competition, this time designing a community center inspired by Knoxville's open spaces. It took first place, earning me a small cash prize and a feature in the school newsletter. I waited for them to notice, to say anything, but they didn't. Kayla, meanwhile, got a new laptop for her latest law school milestone. Mrs. Larson, my art teacher, became my beacon. She'd seen my library design and pulled me aside after class. "Adrienne, your work has soul," she said, her warm eyes meeting mine. "You could study design at a place like UCLA. Don't let anyone dim your light." Her words were oxygen to my starving hope. She helped me refine my portfolio, teaching me how to blend functionality with beauty in my sketches. She even arranged for me to meet a local designer who praised my vision and urged me to aim high. Mrs. Larson's belief fueled my ambition, pushing me to dream beyond Knoxville's limits. I started keeping a journal, pouring my anger and dreams onto its pages. Late at night, I'd write about the sting of Kayla's words, the weight of my parents' dismissal, and my resolve to escape. "I'll show them," I scribbled after a particularly cold dinner where Virginia praised Kayla's internship while ignoring my latest design award. "I'll build a life they can't ignore." The journal became my confidant, a safe space to process the hurt and channel it into purpose. Each entry sharpened my focus: get out, get to UCLA, prove I was more than their burden. Courtney. My best friend was my rock through it all. We'd meet at her house where she'd listen as I vented about Kayla's cruelty or my parents' apathy. "They're wrong about you," she'd say, her voice fierce, handing me a soda as we sprawled on her couch. She'd flip through my journal sketches, marveling at my designs, and insist I was destined for greatness. Her unwavering support reminded me I wasn't alone, even when my family made me feel invisible. By 17, I was done begging for their love. I applied to UCLA's design program, pouring my heart into the application. Mrs. Larson wrote me a glowing recommendation, calling my work exceptional and my spirit unbreakable. When the acceptance letter arrived, I felt a surge of triumph. My parents barely reacted. Virginia mumbled, "That's far," and Robert nodded absently. Kayla rolled her eyes, saying, "Good luck out there." Their dismissal only hardened my resolve. I wasn't just leaving Knoxville, I was leaving their shadow. I'd prove my worth not for them, but for me. Leaving Knoxville for UCLA, I felt freedom for the first time. At 18, I stepped onto the sprawling campus in Los Angeles, my heart racing with possibility. I was no longer the girl begging for love in a cold Tennessee home. Enrolling in UCLA's interior design program, I dove into a world of creativity, sketching bold spaces that reflected the warmth I'd always craved. My professors challenged me to think bigger, to blend form and function in ways I'd never imagined. Every lecture, every critique, felt like a step toward a future I could shape. Courtney, my best friend, was my roommate, her familiar laugh a tether to my past. She'd drag me to campus events, late-night study sessions, art gallery openings, pushing me to meet people. "You're not invisible here." "Adrienne," she'd say, her eyes bright as we grabbed coffee between classes. With her by my side, I started to open up. We'd spend evenings in our dorm swapping stories with new friends like Maya Chen, a graphic design major with a sharp wit, and Lucas Rivera, an architecture student who loved debating design trends. They became my circle, my first taste of belonging outside Knoxville's shadows. Therapy changed everything. UCLA's counseling center offered free sessions, and I signed up, hesitant but desperate to untangle the pain I'd carried. My counselor, Dr. Patel, listened as I poured out years of hurt, Virginia's dismissals, Robert's silence, Kayla's cruel words. "Their rejection isn't your fault," she said, her voice steady. "You're not defined by their choices." Those words hit hard, cracking open the belief that I was the problem. Week after week, I unpacked the weight of being called a burden, learning to see my worth beyond my family's indifference. Therapy wasn't a cure, but it was a lifeline, helping me rebuild my confidence. Design projects became my proving ground. I joined a student team to redesign a local community center, sketching layouts that prioritized accessibility and comfort. Our project won a campus award, and I stood on stage accepting a plaque, my heart pounding with pride. Another project, a sustainable dorm concept, caught the eye of a visiting professor who offered me an internship with a Los Angeles design firm. I threw myself into every assignment, honing my skills, drafting floor plans, selecting textures, mastering software like AutoCAD. Each success built my confidence, proving I could create something valuable, something lasting. Courtney was my cheerleader through it all. When I doubted myself before a big presentation, she'd sit me down saying, "You've got this, Adrienne. Your designs are magic." We'd stay up late refining my portfolio, her feedback sharp but kind. Maya and Lucas joined in too, brainstorming with me over pizza, their laughter filling our cramped dorm. They weren't just friends, they were my chosen family, people who saw me for who I was, not who I wasn't. We'd celebrate small victories, my first A+ on a design critique, Maya's gallery showcase, Lucas's internship offer, with impromptu dance parties, music blaring until neighbors complained. My family in Knoxville felt like a distant echo. I called Virginia once a month, hoping for a connection. "How's school?" she'd ask, her tone flat, already distracted by her event planning. Robert rarely picked up, and when he did, his responses were clipped. "Good to hear from you." Kayla sent a single text during my first semester, boasting about her law firm job. Their apathy stung, but it no longer crushed me. Therapy had taught me to let go of their approval, to focus on the life I was building. I stopped expecting their praise, finding it instead in my professor's feedback and my friends' encouragement. By my junior year, I was thriving. I led a student design club, organizing workshops for aspiring designers. My sustainable dorm project was featured in a campus magazine, earning me a scholarship. I'd walk across UCLA's campus, sketching ideas under palm trees, feeling like I belonged. Maya, Lucas, and Courtney were my constants, their support unwavering. We'd plan dream projects together, redesigning community spaces, imagining eco-friendly homes, each idea fueling my ambition. I wasn't just surviving, I was creating a life where I mattered. Leaving Knoxville hadn't erased the pain, but UCLA gave me space to heal. I wasn't the unwanted child anymore. I was Adrienne Fox, a designer with a vision surrounded by people who valued me. My chosen family, Courtney, Maya, Lucas, showed me what love could feel like. I was building a future not for Virginia, Robert, or Kayla, but for myself, and that was enough. Even far from home, I still hoped my parents would love me more. At UCLA, I was carving out a life as an interior design major, but a stubborn part of me yearned for my family's warmth. To build that bridge, I took on side jobs, tutoring classmates, freelancing for a boutique design studio, and sent money back to Knoxville. Each month, I wired hundreds to my mother, picturing her, and my father smiling, maybe even calling to say they were grateful. Instead, Virginia texted back short replies. Got it. Thanks. My father never mentioned the money. Their indifference stung like a fresh wound, but I kept sending, clinging to the hope that my sacrifice might spark their affection. My sister Kayla made it worse. Her social media was a parade of new purchases, shiny handbags, tailored dresses, clearly funded by my contributions. One evening, frustrated, I called her asking why she spent the money on luxuries while I budgeted tightly. Relax, Adrienne, she said, her voice dripping with nonchalance. You're fine at UCLA. Her casual dismissal cut deep, echoing the entitlement I'd always known. I wanted to stop sending money to let them fend for themselves, but guilt gnawed at me. What if they really needed it? What if this was my last shot at their approval? So I kept wiring funds even as my savings shrank. My studies kept me grounded. I poured my energy into a national design competition, creating a modular home concept that balanced eco-friendly materials with practical living spaces. Sleepless nights in the studio, fueled by Courtney's encouragement and endless coffee, led to a $5,000 scholarship win. At the award ceremony, I gripped the certificate, my chest swelling with pride, imagining my parents' faces if they'd cared to show up. I called Virginia to share the news. Sounds nice. She said, her tone distracted, before shifting to Kayla's new law firm promotion. My father didn't answer my call. Their lack of interest hurt, but the scholarship eased my financial burden, letting me focus on my senior year. Courtney saw how their coldness weighed on me. Over late-night burritos, she'd listen as I ranted about Kayla's spending or my parents' apathy. They don't get to define you, she'd say, her voice firm, passing me a soda. Maya and Lucas, my friends from UCLA, echoed her support. At our favorite campus cafe, Maya suggested I set a budget for what I sent home to protect my finances. Lucas, always upbeat, reminded me my designs were my true legacy, not my family's approval. Their words reinforced what Dr. Patel had said in therapy: my value didn't hinge on my parents' love. Their encouragement kept me steady, a reminder of the family I'd chosen. I pushed harder in my career, prep interning at a top-tier Los Angeles design firm. I worked on client projects, modern office spaces, cozy residential interiors, learning to pitch with confidence. My portfolio expanded with polished designs, earning nods from mentors. One professor praised my modular home concept as forward-thinking, encouraging me to apply for a National Design Fellowship. I spent weeks perfecting my application, driven by a need to prove I was more than the burden Kayla had called me. Each milestone felt like a step toward a future I controlled, not one dictated by my family's neglect. The money I sent home became a heavier burden. By my final year, I'd sent thousands to Knoxville, often cutting back on essentials to make ends meet. Virginia's texts only came when a transfer was delayed, never with gratitude. Robert sent one vague email: keep sending. Kayla's posts, new shoes, fancy brunches, mocked my efforts. One night, staring at my nearly empty bank account, I called Dr. Patel, my voice shaking. I'm killing myself for them, I said. They'll never care. She replied, You can't change them, Adrienne. Protect your peace. Her words were a wake-up call. I was chasing a mirage. I started setting boundaries. When Virginia texted for more money, I responded, "I'm stretched thin." She didn't reply. Kayla called, asking for cash for a new jacket. "Earn it yourself," I said, my tone calm but firm. She hung up angry. It felt like losing them all over again, but it also felt right. I still sent small amounts when I could, but I stopped letting their demands drain me. My energy belonged to my designs, my friends, my future. I was done chasing. When my father needed heart surgery, I returned to Knoxville with a flicker of hope. Now I was a celebrated interior designer in Chicago, my work featured in magazines for its bold, sustainable aesthetic. In early 2025, my mother called, her voice strained, saying my father's heart condition demanded an immediate operation. The hospital quoted a crushing $200,000, far beyond their means. Despite the boundaries I'd set, I paid the entire bill, covering surgery and recovery costs. I told myself it was about duty, but a small part of me hoped this gesture might finally warm their hearts. I stayed at a hotel in Knoxville, unwilling to revisit the house that held so much pain. At the hospital, my father lay frail, his eyes avoiding mine. "You didn't have to," he muttered, his voice weak. Virginia sat nearby, scrolling through her phone, offering only a curt nod. Their lack of gratitude cut deep, but I stayed, meeting with doctors to ensure his care was seamless. I hoped my presence might spark a connection, a sign they saw me as more than a checkbook. Instead, Virginia's responses were clipped, her attention elsewhere. Their detachment felt like a wall I couldn't climb. Kayla, my sister, was even colder. She sauntered into the hospital, her new earrings sparkling, and said, "You're just doing your part, Adrienne." Her words framed my sacrifice as an expectation, not a choice. Furious, I confronted her outside the ward. "I'm not your bank." I snapped, my voice steady despite my anger. She smirked, replying, "You're the big shot now. It's only right." Her arrogance widened the chasm between us, reviving the sting of her calling me a burden years ago. I walked away, my resolve hardening, but I couldn't shake the hope that something might change. Determined to try, I organized a family dinner at their house, picturing a night that could heal old wounds. I spent hours planning, buying ingredients for grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, and a berry tart, food meant to bring warmth to a cold table. Courtney flew in from Los Angeles, her presence a lifeline. "You're enough," she said, stirring sauce beside me. I invited Maya and Lucas, their familiar faces a buffer against the tension. They arrived with hugs, ready to support me through this gamble for reconciliation. The dinner started awkwardly. Virginia sat stiffly, critiquing the salmon's flavor. My father, still recovering, ate slowly, barely speaking. Kayla filled the silence with stories of her law firm's victories, her voice sharp and self-assured. I tried to spark connection, mentioning a family picnic from my childhood, hoping for shared nostalgia. Then Virginia's voice cut through, cold and deliberate. "We never wanted you, Adrienne. You were always extra." The words, sharp as a blade, froze the room. My father looked down, silent. Kayla nodded slightly, as if it were obvious. The sentence I'd carried since childhood landed again, heavier now, stripping away my hope. Courtney gripped my hand under the table, her eyes fierce. Maya tried to shift the mood, praising my recent Chicago project, a community hub with eco-friendly design. Lucas asked Virginia about her event planning, hoping to ease the tension. She brushed him off with a shrug. My father mumbled, "Food's good," but his words felt hollow. Kayla scoffed, saying, "Don't act like you're saving us, Adrienne." Their rejection was a chorus, each note crushing my effort to mend what was broken. I kept my composure, serving dessert, but the weight of their words pressed against my chest. As the night ended, I cleared the plates, my hands trembling. Virginia offered a stiff "thank you," her tone more formal than familial. My father retreated to his armchair, eyes on the TV. Kayla left abruptly, muttering about a work email. Courtney, Maya, and Lucas stayed to help, their quiet support a stark contrast to my family's chill. I'd paid for my father's surgery cooked this meal, but their hearts remained locked. Standing in the kitchen, surrounded by uneaten tart, I realized no amount of giving would make them see me. I left Knoxville the next morning, my hope extinguished, ready to let go for good. In Chicago, I rebuilt my life free from their shadows. After the failed dinner in Knoxville, I stayed put, pouring my energy into my interior design career. My latest project, a sustainable housing complex, earned praise across Chicago's architecture scene, cementing my reputation. I'd spent years chasing my family's approval, but their rejection, capped by Virginia's cruel "We never wanted you," had finally set me free. I focused on what mattered: my work, my chosen family, and a new dream, a charitable foundation to fund design education for underserved youth. It was my way of giving back, not to those who spurned me, but to those who deserved it. 3 weeks later, my mother called, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "We're in a bind, Adrienne," she said. "The house payments? We're behind." Their finances, already strained from my father's medical bills I'd paid, had collapsed further. Virginia's event planning business was faltering, and my father's health kept him from working. She asked for a loan, as if my past sacrifices were forgotten. I stood in my Chicago apartment, the skyline glittering outside, and felt the weight of their words over the years. "You never wanted me?" I said, my voice calm but resolute. "I'm done helping." I hung up, a quiet strength settling in my chest like a door closing for good. Kayla called the next day, her tone sharp. "You're really going to let us lose everything?" she demanded, as if my success obligated me to save them. I repeated, "You never wanted me," and ended the call. My father didn't call, his silence louder than words. Their demands were a final test, one I passed by choosing myself. I'd given thousands over the years, money, time, hope, only to be met with disdain. Saying no wasn't revenge, it was justice, a boundary I'd earned. I blocked their numbers, severing the last tie to a family that had never truly been mine. In Knoxville, their world crumbled. Virginia's business dried up as clients, sensing her desperation, turned to competitors. Her once polished reputation as a community figurehead faded, leaving her isolated. Robert, weakened by his surgery, lost his standing as a local leader, his pride eroded by whispers of their financial ruin. Kayla's law firm sidelined her after a botched case, her social media now barren, her socialite status gone. The family, once central to Knoxville's elite, became pariahs, their arrogance pushing away allies. Their downfall wasn't my doing. It was the natural consequence of their choices, a mirror to the pain they'd caused me. My life in Chicago blossomed. My foundation launched successfully, mentoring young designers whose passion reminded me of my own at their age. I spent evenings with Courtney, my best friend, laughing over coffee or brainstorming new projects. Her support, unwavering since childhood, was my anchor. I reconnected with Maya and Lucas over video calls, their encouragement a reminder of the family I'd built. My apartment, filled with sketches and plants, became a sanctuary. I'd spent too long seeking love from those who withheld it. Now I found joy in my work, my friends, and the impact I was making. The foundation grew, securing grants to expand its reach. I spoke at design conferences, sharing my journey from rejection to resilience, inspiring others to chase their dreams. Each mentor session with a student felt like healing a piece of my younger self. My worth wasn't tied to my family's approval, it never had been. Setting boundaries wasn't just about saying no, it was about saying yes to myself. I'd carried their weight for years, but letting go gave me wings. Chicago, with its vibrant chaos, was where I belonged, surrounded by people who saw me for who I was. To everyone who's followed this story, thank you for staying until the end. It's a reminder that your value doesn't depend on others' validation. Protect your peace, and don't be afraid to walk away from what dims your light. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What spoke to you? If this story resonated, please share it with others and subscribe to the channel for more. Your support means everything.
The annual Patterson family reunion in Detroit was always a grand affair. But this year felt different. As I sat in the hotel's beautifully decorated conference room, gently rocking my 3-month-old daughter Jamie in my arms, I watched my husband Noah rehearsing his acceptance speech for the family's Legacy Award. The irony of him receiving an award for upholding family values wasn't lost on me, especially after what I'd discovered on his phone that morning. My name is Shannon, and at 31 I thought I had it all. A successful marriage, a beautiful baby, and a place in one of Detroit's most respected families. Noah was the golden boy of Patterson Industries, following in his father's footsteps as vice president of operations. Everyone praised us as the perfect couple, and I'd believed it too, until his phone buzzed during breakfast. He'd left it on the hotel room's desk while showering, and I normally wouldn't have looked, but the preview notification caught my eye. Missing you already. Last night was incredible. From someone named Kate P., executive assistant. With trembling hands and Jamie sleeping in her carrier, I'd opened his phone. His password was still our wedding date, something he'd apparently forgotten to change. What I found made my stomach turn. Hundreds of messages, photos, and even a planned trip to the Bahamas, all with Kate Parker, his new assistant. Now, watching him practice his speech about family loyalty and traditional values, I felt an eerie calm settle over me. The conference room's AV system was already set up for his presentation, including a large projector screen and the hotel's state-of-the-art video conferencing system. As an IT project manager, I understood exactly how these systems worked. "Shannon, dear," my mother-in-law Patricia called out, approaching with her perfectly coiffed hair and society smile. "Is everything ready for Noah's speech? This award means so much to the family." "Almost," I replied, adjusting Jamie's blanket. "Just need to check the technical setup one last time." Patricia beamed. "You're always so thorough. We're blessed to have you in the family." If she only knew what her precious son had been up to with his assistant, but she would soon enough. I'd noticed Kate's online status changed to available on Noah's phone. Right on schedule. She was probably expecting their usual morning video call. I stood up, placing Jamie in her grandmother's eager arms. "Would you mind watching her for a moment? I need to help Noah with the presentation setup." The conference room buzzed with activity as extended family members took their seats. Noah's younger sister Nicole was adjusting the flowers on the podium, while his father Robert, CEO of Patterson Industries, reviewed his introduction speech. The irony of them all preparing to celebrate Noah's integrity wasn't lost on me. I approached the AV control panel, Jamie's soft coos still audible from where she sat with Patricia. "Just double-checking the connections," I told the hotel's technician with a smile, watching him finish the setup. My IT background made the next steps crystal clear. The system was ready for any incoming video calls to display automatically on the main screen. Noah's phone buzzed again in my hand. Another message from Kate. "Can't wait for our morning check-in, handsome. I have a surprise for you, smiley face." I looked up at my husband, who was now greeting elderly relatives with that charming smile I'd once fallen for. He had no idea I'd seen their plans, how they'd discussed using his family connections to start their own company, how they'd laughed about me being too busy with the baby to notice anything. 5 minutes until we start," Robert announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to running board meetings. "Shannon, is everything set with the presentation?" "Almost perfect," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Just need Noah's phone to connect for the slideshow." Noah walked over, straightening his tie. "Here you go, honey," he said, handing me his phone without a second thought. "You're always better with the technical stuff." I connected his phone to the system, knowing that Kate would be calling any minute for their morning meeting. The same morning meeting that had been happening every day at 10 a.m., while I was busy with pediatrician appointments and client calls. "Everyone, please take your seats," Patricia called out, still holding Jamie. "We're about to celebrate a very special member of the Patterson family." The lights dimmed slightly, and Noah took his place at the podium. Robert stepped up to begin his introduction, speaking about family legacy and the importance of moral character in business. I sat in the front row, next to Patricia and Jamie, watching the small indicator light on the AV panel turn green. Kate was right on schedule. Her incoming video call would connect any second now. Noah cleared his throat, preparing to accept his award, completely unaware that his carefully constructed world was about to shatter. "The Patterson name has always stood for integrity," Robert was saying, his voice filled with pride. "And no one exemplifies our values better than my son, Noah." The large screen behind them suddenly flickered to life. Kate's face appeared, her blonde hair artfully tousled, wearing what was clearly not appropriate office attire. The entire room froze. "Hey, handsome," she purred, clearly not realizing she was broadcasting to a room full of people. "Missing you already. That quick meeting in your office this morning wasn't nearly enough." Noah's face drained of color. He spun around, finally seeing the screen, then turned back to stare at me in horror. I met his gaze steadily, bouncing Jamie gently on my knee. "I thought we could discuss those plans to break away from your father's company," Kate continued, adjusting her camera. "I've already started reaching out to some of Patterson Industries' clients. They're very interested in what we have to offer." Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. Robert's expression hardened as he heard his company's name. The room was dead silent except for Kate's voice and Jamie's quiet coos. "Your wife's obviously too busy with the baby to notice anything," Kate laughed. "And once we get your family's main investors on board—" "Kate, stop," Noah finally managed to croak out. She froze, finally noticing the background behind him. Her eyes widened as she took in the conference room, the family members, and me sitting calmly in the front row with his daughter. "Oh my God," she whispered, her face turning pale. The screen went black as she disconnected. Robert was the first to break the silence. "Son," he said, his voice cold, "my office. Now." "Shannon, I can explain—" Noah started, but I cut him off. "I think Kate explained everything quite clearly," I said, keeping my voice level. "Though I'm sure the board will be interested in hearing more about your plans to steal company clients." Patricia was crying silently, still clutching Jamie's diaper bag. Around us, family members were whispering, phones were being pulled out, and decades of Patterson reputation were crumbling in real time. I stood up, gathering Jamie's things. "I'll have my lawyer contact you," I told Noah, who seemed to have aged 10 years in the past 5 minutes. "I'm sure you understand I'll be seeking full custody." As I walked out of the conference room, Jamie secure in my arms, I heard Robert addressing the stunned family members. "I apologize for this unfortunate situation. The Legacy Award ceremony is clearly postponed." I didn't look back. Sometimes karma doesn't need any help. It just needs the right stage to reveal the truth. The next 48 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. I moved into a suite at a different hotel with Jamie, ignoring the constant stream of calls and messages from Noah. By Monday morning, the incident had already sent shockwaves through Detroit's business community. I sat in my lawyer's office, Jamie sleeping peacefully in her carrier, as Jessica Anderson laid out our strategy. "Patterson Industries board has called an emergency meeting," she said, shuffling through documents. "Apparently, several clients have already come forward, confirming that Kate Parker approached them about moving their business to a new venture." "Which means Noah wasn't just cheating on me?" I replied, keeping my voice low to avoid waking Jamie. "He was actively plotting corporate espionage." Jessica nodded. "Robert Patterson called. He wants to meet with you privately before the board meeting." I wasn't surprised. Robert had built Patterson Industries from the ground up, turning it into one of Detroit's most respected companies. The scandal wasn't just a family matter anymore. It threatened the business itself. An hour later, I sat across from Robert in his corner office, Jamie still sleeping soundly beside me. The city skyline stretched out behind him, a view Noah had once hoped would be his. "Shannon," Robert began, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "First, I want to apologize. What Noah and that woman did is unforgivable, both to you and to this company." I nodded, waiting. Robert hadn't built an empire by being sentimental. We've frozen Noah's accounts and access, he continued. Kate Parker has been terminated, and our legal team is preparing action against both of them. But we have another issue to discuss. He slid a folder across his desk. Inside were details of several major client accounts, ones I'd helped secure through my IT consulting work. These clients are threatening to leave, Robert said, not because of the scandal, but because you were their primary technical contact. They trust you. I had worked with many of Patterson Industries' clients, modernizing their systems while Noah took the credit. The irony wasn't lost on me. What are you proposing? I asked, although I already had an idea. We'd like to offer you a position as Chief Technology Officer, Robert replied. The board agrees we need someone with your expertise, especially now. Your integrity and skills are exactly what this company needs to move forward. I glanced at Jamie, thinking about her future. And Noah? His shares will be bought out at minimum value, per the company bylaws regarding ethical violations. He'll be lucky if he avoids criminal charges for attempting to steal trade secrets. Robert's expression hardened. The Patterson name stands for something in this city. He forgot that. You never did. Jamie stirred in her carrier, and I gently rocked her back to sleep. The position Robert was offering would mean security for her future, but it was more than that. It was a chance to build something meaningful from the ashes of Noah's betrayal. I'll need to review the contract with my lawyer, I said finally, and I want a seat on the board. Robert smiled for the first time since the reunion. Already included. We're not losing you to another company, Shannon. Unlike my son, I recognize true value when I see it. The news broke in the Detroit Business Journal the following morning. Patterson Industries announces new CTO amid family scandal. The article was diplomatic but clear. Noah's attempted corporate espionage had failed, and the company was emerging stronger under new leadership. I was reviewing resumes for my technical team when Nicole, Noah's sister, appeared in my new office doorway. She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot. I just saw Noah in the lobby, she said. He's trying to get past security. Says he needs to talk to Dad about his shares. I continued scanning the resume in front of me. That's not my concern anymore. Security has their instructions. Nicole moved closer, glancing at Jamie sleeping in her portable crib near my desk. He looks terrible, Shannon. Kate apparently took off with most of their money. The Bahamas trip they planned? She went without him, emptied their joint account. Karma works in interesting ways, I replied, making a note on a promising candidate's application. Did you need something specific, Nicole? I have a board meeting in 30 minutes. She sank into the chair across from me. I can't believe he threw everything away. The family name, his marriage, his relationship with Jamie. A commotion in the hallway interrupted her. Noah's voice carried through the open door. I have every right to be here. That's my family's company. I pressed the intercom. Security, please escort Mr. Patterson from the building. And Nicole. I turned to my former sister-in-law. You might want to remind your brother that his restraining order covers this office. Nicole nodded sadly and left. Through my window, I watched Noah being led to the parking lot, his once immaculate suit wrinkled, his golden boy confidence shattered. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica, my lawyer. Kate Parker spotted in Miami. Local authorities notified regarding the corporate theft charges. I muted the phone as Robert walked in, carrying a stack of files. Ready for the board meeting? We're announcing the new cybersecurity division today. Just finished reviewing candidates for the team, I replied, gathering my materials. Also, Noah was here. Robert's expression darkened. I saw. The board's voting on officially removing him as a shareholder this afternoon. His little scheme with Ms. Parker violated every clause in his contract. As we walked to the boardroom, employees nodded respectfully. Many were my new hires, young tech professionals eager to help modernize Patterson Industries. In just 3 weeks, we'd launched 2 new digital initiatives that had already attracted major clients. Shannon, Robert paused outside the boardroom. I know this can't be easy, running into Noah like that. If you need time. I adjusted Jamie's carrier on my arm. What I need is to focus on moving this company forward. Noah and Kate's drama isn't my concern anymore. Inside, the board members were already seated. These were the same people who used to dismiss me as just Noah's wife. Now they looked to me for leadership. Let's begin, I said, taking my seat at the table. We have a company to run. The quarterly investors' meeting fell exactly 1 month after the family reunion incident. I stood at the podium presenting our new technology initiatives to a packed conference room, the same room where Noah's deception had been exposed. Our cybersecurity division has already secured contracts with 3 major financial institutions, I explained, gesturing to the growth charts behind me. Patterson Industries is positioned to become a leader in financial technology protection. In the back of the room, a television played silently, tuned to a local news channel. I noticed a few board members glancing at it during my presentation, and when I turned to change slides, I saw why. Kate Parker's face was on the screen, being led into a Miami courthouse in handcuffs. Without missing a beat, I continued my presentation. Our second quarter projections show a 40% increase in tech sector revenue. Later in my office, Robert filled me in on the details. She tried to sell proprietary information to one of our competitors. Unfortunately for her, they have more integrity than she does. They contacted us immediately. And Noah? I asked, organizing reports on my desk while Jamie played with her toys in her corner of the office. Still claiming he knew nothing about her attempts to steal company secrets, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Robert handed me a folder. The FBI found these in Kate's apartment. Inside were detailed notes about Patterson Industries' clients, including information that only Noah would have had access to. There were also emails outlining their plan to start a competing company using stolen data and connections. The board's lawyers estimate he's looking at significant legal consequences, Robert continued, both civil and criminal. I closed the folder. That's not my concern anymore. Have you seen the proposal from the tech startup in Singapore? Before Robert could respond, my assistant stepped in. Mrs. Patterson. She caught herself. Ms. Kennedy, sorry. The developers are ready for the new system test. Thank you, Evelyn. I stood up, gathering my tablet. Robert, we can discuss Singapore over dinner. Patricia's still coming to watch Jamie, right? He nodded, smiling at his granddaughter. She's the only good thing that came from all this. As I headed to the development floor, I passed the wall of company photos. The old one showing Noah and me at last year's charity gala had been replaced with a new image. Me speaking at a tech conference, announcing Patterson Industries' digital transformation initiative. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Former executive assistant pleads guilty to corporate espionage, faces up to 15 years. Below it was another message, this one from Noah's lawyer, attempting yet again to negotiate terms for his shares. I archived both notifications without reading further. The development team was waiting, and we had actual work to do. The company's future wasn't going to build itself. Okay, team, I said, entering the conference room filled with eager young developers. Show me what you've got. 1 year after the family reunion incident, I stood in my office overlooking downtown Detroit, Jamie playing with blocks at her little desk beside mine. At 2 years old, she was already showing signs of her mother's technical aptitude, stacking her blocks in patterns and sequences. The morning's Detroit Business Journal sat on my desk. Patterson Industries reports record growth under new leadership. The article highlighted our successful expansion into cybersecurity and international markets, with our Singapore office exceeding all projections. My phone buzzed with a message from Jessica, my lawyer. Noah's final appeal denied. Full custody remains with you. His prison sentence starts next month. I set the phone aside, turning my attention to more important matters. Our development team was putting the finishing touches on a revolutionary banking security system, and I had a board meeting to prepare for. Ms. Kennedy, my assistant called from the doorway, the new tech team from Singapore is ready for their video conference. Thank you, Evelyn. I smiled at the irony. This was the same conference system that had exposed Noah and Kate's deception a year ago. Now it was being used to expand the company globally. Jamie looked up from her blocks, waving at the familiar faces appearing on screen. These were the people who mattered now. My team, my daughter, our future. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about moving forward and building something better than what you lost. The day Noah reported to prison, I was giving the keynote speech at Detroit's Women in Technology Summit. Standing at the podium, I looked out at the crowd of aspiring female tech leaders, many of them recent hires at Patterson Industries. Success isn't built on shortcuts or schemes, I told them, thinking of how differently things had turned out from what Noah and Kate had planned. It's built on innovation, integrity, and the courage to move forward when others try to hold you back. After the speech, while answering questions from young women eager to follow in my footsteps, I received a final update from Robert. Kate had been sentenced to 12 years for corporate espionage and fraud. The money she'd stolen was long gone, spent on luxury purchases in various tropical locations before her arrest. That evening, as I picked up Jamie from Patricia's house, my former mother-in-law hugged me tightly. "You've done more for the Patterson name than Noah ever did," she said, watching Jamie show off her new coding game on her tablet. "You turned our scandal into success." Driving home to our new house in the historic district, I thought about the past year. Patterson Industries had doubled in value under my leadership. Our cybersecurity division was revolutionizing the industry. And Jamie was growing up in an environment that valued integrity over appearances. Sometimes life's biggest betrayals lead to its greatest opportunities. You just have to be strong enough to walk through the fire and wise enough to build something better from the ashes.